to another paint night. So I'm going to demo for the paint night that I'm going to be teaching tonight. And it is going to be this little Owly sort of night sky background thing. And so I did look at the instructions. Whenever there are instructions, I always look at the official instructions, but these ones were pretty high level. So we're going to go with just mostly figuring it out. So there's a couple areas on here where we have a dark blue, and usually when you're working with paint nights especially, anytime you want a dark blue, you want to add blue with a little bit of red into it, brings it a little bit in a purple direction, and then it just creates the illusion of a darker blue. So I think I'm going to start with the dark blues. Actually, before anything, because I think water is going to be really helpful on this one, I'm just going to paint my canvas with my paint water. This hydrates the canvas and just lets the water in the paint glide around the canvas a bit easier. There's absolutely such thing as putting too much water in. You'll notice right away if you do, because the paint will start spreading right away. If that does happen, you can just take a hand or a cloth or a soft paper towel, something like that, and then just wipe it down like that, and it should be just fine. Even your hand works. But I want to get the whole canvas nice and covered here because I want to make my job later as easy as I possibly can. Alrighty. Up and down, up and down. Awesome. Alright, so canvas now pretty much hydrated. There's still a couple dry spots like right here, but not the entire thing has to be done. This is really just to help us go a little bit easier. Again, usually just take my hand, give it a little wipe, make sure that there's no excess water on it, kind of squeegee it down if I need to, and then wipe it off on my paint. So now I'm going to start adding in some dark blue in some choice areas, particularly right around where that moon is. To get my dark blue, I'm going to mix a little bit of red in with my blue. So I'm going to take some blue here, put it off on the side, and take a little bit of red. Not that much compared to the amount of blue that I have. Mix it in. And if you're thinking, well, that's purple, then yeah, you're right, it is purple. That's how you mix purple, but if you go with a lot more blue than red, you end up getting a darker blue. I don't know how well it shows up on there, but there's the default blue, there's the darker blue. And let's go ahead and start putting it on some places. So I'm just gonna add a little bit up here. You don't need to be too particular about where it is. We're just trying to look for a lot of variation. And so you can see there's parts of my canvas where maybe I put a little bit much water, where it's a little bit thinner, but it's not a big deal. So just get a little bit of this dark blue all over the place. Particularly, I think, around the edges here, just looking at what they've got up there. I'm probably going to want some more of this color as well, because I'm assuming that this is a little bit too thin for what we really want, but that's all right. We'll start with this. And looking at the background here, it's really turbulent. You can add in some texture by dapping your brush like this, or you can just kind of go in more or less random directions. And then once we get a little bit of this dark blue going on, let's do up in this corner down into the moon, because the moon also really likes this. Now we can start mixing up a light blue. Don't need to wash my brush. I can just go into it and grab a little bit of this blue. I can put it even right next to the one I was mixing earlier. I'm gonna change my palette direction so that my white is not floating over into my blue too much. Going to go ahead, add a little bit more white here, and get a nice light blue. And then we're gonna kind of play between these two blues here. And we're gonna just add blues in different areas, different amounts. So let's get a little bit of this on here. Anytime we come to one of these areas where we've got the darker blue, we want to paint over it a little bit so that blends together just a little bit. And it creates a nice little gradient from this blue to the other blue. You can always dip into your paint water as well. Get a little bit more on here. Rub that together. Get a little bit up here. And I think we're overall looking pretty okay. We want a nice balance between these two things. So I think I'm gonna grab more of this dark blue, put it over here, and we're just gonna make a little bit more of that by putting some more red into it. And that might have been a little bit too much red, that's okay. We can deal with a little bit of purple. And go back up here, add this. Again, you can kind of use various brush strokes to start getting this on here. The big thing is that we want nice, turbulent looking sky. So we just need paint kind of all over the place. Anywhere where we've put it over, we do want to do a little bit of blending just so it mixes in more nicely. And then we get these nice smooth transitions. And lots of fun little texture from our brush strokes. gonna grab us some more of this light blue. And go in some areas over here. Going all over the place. And getting nice areas of lightness and darkness. We're gonna need some more blue. I'm just using the default blue now, getting that on here. We'll probably come in with a little bit of white later. Dress it up a little bit. And always nice to get the sides as well, if you can. I always forget to get the sides, but it's nice if you can remember them. Because it will look a little bit more polished, a little bit more finished, and just a little bit more professional if you do. All right, so now we've got this. We've got some areas of lighter and darker blues. Now we can kind of just start playing with this, try to bring it a little bit closer to what we see in the background there. I see some like almost cloud looking formations. So I'm just gonna take a little bit of white and mix it into my blue here. And we're just gonna start dusting a little bit of this cloudiness on, which is really just white. And as we mix it in, it's going to blend nicely with the blues that are already on there, as long as it's still wet. If you let it sit too long, it'll dry, and it will become a little bit too dry to do this, but as long as it's still wet, we can definitely do this. There are other ways to get white onto the canvas, or this sort of cloudy, misty effect after it's dried, but for this one, I think it's easiest just to get it in there while it's still wet. And let's just pull this down here. And yeah, down here. Get a little bit of this mistiness in. Right around the edges here, I'm just kind of trying to blend it a little bit so that we don't really have that much sharpness in the transitions, but I still want to see this sort of misty, cloudy sort of effect. It's going to be interesting when I teach because I don't really know how to describe what I'm doing other than I'm just kind of shutting my brain off and letting it do some work to get a little bit of brighter areas here. All right, so bring a little bit more of this white down here. And roughen up the sides again. A little bit coming in over here as well. We can grab a little bit more white. Bring it in there. And gets nice and misty for us like that. Looking at it, just looking at this versus my reference, I think there's some areas where I want to make the white a little bit more intense. So particularly this area down here, I want to add in a little bit more white on top, just right around here, and then also up in the top left-hand corner right around over here. I think we want it to be a lot more gassy white looking. My paint is just starting to dry out a little bit right now, so I'm starting to see some of the things that I would normally see, like scratchier strokes, but that's okay, because it's still wet enough to work with here. And as soon as I look around here, I'm thinking this is looking good. I want to bring a little bit more of that dark color back in, I think. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash my brush real quick, get it relatively dry. I don't over want it to be like soaking or super dry, but just a little bit dry. And then we'll go back into our dark paint and we're gonna bring that, a little bit more of that back in, right over here. If you need to, you can also add water when you're doing this, it helps a lot. Get a little bit more dark area over there. And then I think also a little bit more dark area towards the bottom. Seems to be where most of the darkness is concentrated, right around here. And as we do this, we're going to be picking up paint off of the canvas, so that's going to lighten the dark color. So you might have to dip back into your dark color or mix up more of it as you go. And to get the dark blue again, just a little bit of red mixed in with your default blue is all good. So let's get a little bit more of this darkness down here, right around here, getting like a nice little frame in on this part of the painting. Okay, looking like it's getting to be a good state. I think we want to bring a little bit more darkness up on the right-hand side, right up here. And then once that's good, I think that'll be okay. I just need to blend it. Okay. So we got some areas of lightness, we got some areas of darkness, kind of like a misty sort of effect look that we got going on here. Now it's time to do my least favorite part, which is going to be the moon. And I don't know how many paper towel I do. How delightful. So for the moon, oftentimes pretty tough to draw a perfectly sort of spherical thing. So we're just gonna work at it a little bit and see what we can do. It'll might need some time to dry, actually, now I'm thinking about it. Probably will. So maybe I'll hold off on for a minute. I don't know what I want to do. I think I'll just add a little bit more white while I'm waiting, because these areas need to be pretty dry before we start fussing around with the moon too much. We need to let it go for a little bit. So let's go ahead and just add in a little bit more white over here. Using these kind of swirly strokes. Whoa, that was a lot right there. And then we can go ahead and blend it in using light pressure in the circular motion. Just to get a little bit more of that gassy sort of look going on. A little bit more over here. Okay, and almost like a little diagonal cut through the painting. Okay. And a little bit more right down here, just to fuss up this area. Okay, nice. So I'm pretty happy with that. I think now I can start at least thinking about the moon here. Looking at my moon over here, it takes up, I would say, I'm going down to not quite half for sure. Half would be about there. That's like, if I were to bump it up just a little bit, maybe a third of my canvas. So if I split my canvas into thirds, one there, one there, I need to start this down here and come down to maybe about halfway. So let's go ahead, mix up a little bit of white with yellow in it. We don't want too much yellow, just a little bit to kind of give the moon a yellowy tinge. But you're mostly going to be doing white here. And let's see how this works. I suspect that it still probably would like some time to dry, but I'm wanting to continue. So let's try just going for it. Oh, looking at this, there's a lot of weird things going on down here. They're like, darker blue streaks sort of things. So I don't know if I'm going to include that, but we'll see. Okay, so for my moon, depends on what the best way it is to go out for you, really. But I usually like to choose where the top of my moon's going to be. So it's going to come up, probably peaking just right about there, roughly. And then I want it to come down to maybe about a little bit above halfway. So if halfway is about there on my canvas, I come a little bit above that. Probably about there is probably fine. Over here, we want to come just to the edge. When you're thinking about where to position your moon, it's way more important that it's circular versus it being in a particular place. So this might be a little bit too far over, but let's just go ahead and see what happens with it. So we're gonna go ahead, start over here at that corner of the moon. And so we've started with a bit of a weird shape. So all we need to do is grow it until it becomes more circular. So come over here. We can also take off any paint that we need to or feel like we need to. Wow. So as I'm doing this, you can see it's going a little bit green / light blue. It's okay. It's just because the paint behind it's a little bit wet, so it's picking up some of the paint there. And I want to bring it down to maybe this area around here. And then continue making this a little bit more of a circular shape. Looking at my reference and looking at this, I think that I'm probably a little bit too far over on the right side. We can always go back over it with a little bit of blue though, so it's not a big deal. I just want to see what I can do to make it more circular like that. And beauty, we're starting to come to the right shape here. Alrighty. I think I'm generally getting pretty happy with that. The shape of the moon will evolve a little bit as we go on. It'll become a little bit less oval, a little bit more circular. And that'll be done just by expanding it out a little bit. That might look pretty good. All right. Nice. Okay, so let's layer on some more of this light color. We're leaving the middle a little bit untouched because we don't want this moon to be fully white and opaque. We just want it to be sort of blending into the sky in some areas. I want a lot more of this white-yellow mixture on the outside, so I'm just gonna take more white, gonna take some more yellow. It's going a bit green on me because I've got too much blue mixed in, but that's okay. Green moons can be fun. Alrighty. Get some of this paint on here. I want to avoid these big thick patches, but I want a nice layer of paint on a good chunk of this moon here. Because next, what we're gonna do is kind of take it off with some blotting, and that's gonna give us an interesting texture. So this doesn't need to be perfect by any stretch of the imagination. Bring it down to maybe about there. And as long as I get a good amount of paint on here, I'm gonna be pretty happy. Whoa, I should really cinch this thing down. But what fun would that be? Okay. So once we get to the moon too, maybe about here, I think we're probably in a good spot to start taking it away a little bit. So to do this, easy technique, you're gonna grab some paper towel, just regular everyday paper towel like this. And you kind of crunch it up a little bit as if you were gonna throw it out. And then what we can do is start blotting at this area to get some more of that moon texture going. You can also use your fingers for this. And we're gonna bring it back into here. And the only thing we wanna avoid is going too far around the edges here. So we're gonna come around over here, come around right over here. Just like that. And we're starting off in a pretty good spot. So our moon's looking generally pretty happy. I wonder if, wow. We can also come back in if we want with a little bit of the sky color, so a little bit more blue, and we can even use this dark blue in some areas and come in. Oh, we don't have any left. Mix a little bit of blue in here. And then just pop in. Like that. And the more you dot it, the more it's going to blend into a nice transparent looking color. Like that. Alright, I'm going to let that guy dry because we need to let him dry before we can get more paint on there. If we try to add too much paint on right now, since it's still wet, all that's going to happen is the paint's going to pull the other paint off the canvas. So let's think about what else we can do here. I'm looking at my reference here. It was a bit of a closer up one. I see some trees kind of jutting through the background here in a darker sort of blue color. So I think that I'll probably go with those ones next. Might need to add on yet a little bit more white even. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm gonna start, I think, with this guy perhaps, and just get a really fine edge on him. And we're gonna go in with this darker color. If you need to mix up more of it, it's just blue and red to bring it a little bit in a purple direction, but not a huge amount. All right. And take a little bit of the paint out of my brush, because if you have too much paint in your brush, it can bloat the bristles and make it much harder to get a fine edge, which is one of the things that we do want in here. Taking it out, and then just get a little bit on the tip, paint it back and forth on the plate. And that's not really as smooth as I would like it to be, but we can work with it. So now I'm going to just have some suggestions of trees coming in. These don't really need to be very strong at all. I'm just hitting them. Couple lines coming in. get some more paint whenever you need it. Whenever you start to get a little bit wider strokes like that, chances are it means you're running out of paint. You can also use your little detail brush to do this if you want, but I think for the level of detail that these require, you can get away with the big brush, because even if you get like longer, bigger strokes than you want to, nobody's ever going to notice. These are very much so a background element, and nobody ever notices like little details in the background. Whenever you're putting in backgrounds into your paintings, you always want the suggestion of whatever it is, rather than whatever it is. So the suggestion of trees, the suggestion of mountains, or the suggestion of, I don't know, whatever you need to suggest. And so this is supposed to be just branches coming in over here, wherever I've got those tall trees, and then also towards the bottom. Starting to run out of paint again. Get a little bit of water on my brush. Water's super helpful with acrylics. Thanks so much for the legs and everything, guys. All right. And some more of these little pretend branches coming in through the back here. And looking at here, they do come like all the way up around here. And we're looking good. I think when I teach this, I might have people do this with their detail brush, because it'll take them a little bit longer, and also I think just look a little bit more delicate, / people feel more confident with a smaller brush than they do with a bigger one. Looks like you're looking up from a view of them under the trees. A little bit, eh? Yeah, kind of are. There's going to be some owls in here as well. It'll be nice. Okay, let's check in with our little moon here. So, if I poke at it with just my finger, we can get some of these bigger areas in here. I think I should have waited till it dried a bit more. I think now it's kind of blended too much with the background, but that's okay. We can always come back in with another color. For example, like some dark blue. Maybe perhaps a little bit of white in it. And we can bring it back in this way. I'm going to tap it down a couple places up here just to kind of match it a little bit more closely with the reference. And then we'll come back in and just work it in basically with some brush. Impatience is definitely something that can get you. It got me today. Okay, let's get a little bit more on there, a little bit more over there. Just getting some of these darker areas in there. The pen's still wet, so it's still gonna mix quite well. And right now I'm just kind of looking to set out some darker areas. I want this moon to blend nicely into the background here, so I'm gonna start also taking out some of the interior here. And as I do this, the paint's just blending with the paint that's already there. And I'm getting this faded sort of look to it in the center. And then right around here where there's this dark area that I want to preserve, I'm just going to come around with my finger and kind of push around the edges, because I want that dark area there, but I don't want such a harsh edge that it stands out massively. Same as here. I'm going to come in with a little bit more of my finger around some of these darker areas that we don't lose them as we fill in our moon here. And those will become much more prominent and stand out a lot more with thing. I got a C+ in 7th grade for this type pig. That's nice. I always did really well in school, actually, so I can't really relate to your problem, I'm sorry. But it does sound like a hard thing to deal with, you know, getting low grades. I wasn't really particularly allowed to get low grades growing up, so it just didn't really happen. Okay, so I'm gonna pull this in here, get a little bit more, get a little bit more, and then get a little bit more of this darkness coming in the center of the moon here. I want to bring, get a little bit more shadowy and spooky looking. I think that looks good. And then I'm gonna go around, I think with some more paper towel and dab again. Nice. Okay, cool. It's going well. We just need to clean up the edges of it, but we're going to need to let it dry for a little bit because it's still a little bit too wet. My white today is taking absolutely forever to dry, but that's okay. What do we want to do next? We can start throwing in some of these pine trees. This one actually I don't think is going to take super long because it really doesn't seem like it's going to. But the pine trees, I think I'm going to go in with a dark purple. Oftentimes you're told in art not to use black for anything. I'm going to basically just mix up a purple, meaning I'm going to take some red right there, and we're going to take some blue. Going to need more blue. And then we'll go ahead. We'll add that in, becomes a nice purple. Looks pretty dark already, but honestly it's not dark enough for our trees. It'll look a little bit odd if it's not darker, so we're gonna take some black as well and mix that in. And it's gonna give us a really dark purple. So it's not pure black. The reason why we don't use pure black that often is because it's a very high contrast from whatever color's underneath, and so it will, like, I mean, we want these things to stand out, but it'll oftentimes stand out a little bit too much and look a little bit weird if we use pure black. Let's get some water on our brush, scrape that out, mix it into our paint so it's nice and thin. Thinner paint will give us thinner lines usually. I mean, there's a lot of aspects that go into thinner lines, but thinner paint is one of the things that you can do to get yourself thinner lines. So I'm generally pretty happy with that. I'm gonna choke it up pretty high. And then looking at this, my trees don't really have to be in the exact same place as these ones. And I am just taking a quick peek here. These trees definitely look like they're in front of the big tall ones. So I'm gonna start on this side. And we're gonna go all the way up to the top of the canvas. Wow. I'll try to go far away. Well, I don't know if I'm gonna have enough control. And then we're just gonna do one little line straight down. Like that. It's okay if it gets thicker towards the bottom. It's okay also if you get paint all over yourself like I do. So we've got one tall tree coming up almost off the side of the canvas over there. Then we've got another shorter one coming down in the middle right here. So it's gonna be quite a bit shorter. I'm gonna bump it over this far maybe. And then we're gonna pull it down. You know, lots of people get hung up on trying to get straight lines when they're doing paint nights, and I always tell them, you know, we're going to be doing a lot of stuff on it. You don't really need a particularly straight line. You just need a line that goes down in a straightish sort of direction. This one's going to fall a little bit shorter still, and it's not going to quite come past halfway. This littlest one is about halfway, so if halfway is about there, I might want to position it like right there, and come down maybe just a bit farther. And then another little guy right down here, I'm thinking. Whoa. Right there. And I'll stop there for now. I think that that's enough trees that I've got on the go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now start filling out these trees. There's about 100 million different ways to do trees. Always really interesting to do trees for paint nights because, you know, it can kind of go any which way and there's so many different techniques, and depending on which one they use, it can be different effects. This one looks like it's very straight and cloth, or straight across, using kind of a dabbing technique. All of these guys have like a nice point to their tree, kind of like that. And then they start coming in a little bit on the sides. I can put some guide branches down for myself to kind of tell myself, okay, I don't want to get my tree a little bit too big in some areas. These guys seem to grow a little bit and then they kind of come to a maximum width that just touches the other tree. So about there maybe. And then I can go ahead and start adding this in. My branches don't need to be perfectly triangular or create a perfectly triangular shape. They just need to create a shape that looks triangular enough. And so, wow. That was maybe a bit too thick at the top there. I regret that, but that's okay. We can also come down here, get them a little bit wider, and then we can always come back and blot in some more and turn it the other way. In fact, this guy's got a bit of a curve into it. just like that. All I'm doing kind of is poking at the canvas, getting it to be a little bit taller. These trees, again, are really, really tall. They're a bit of an odd shape. I like your art style. This is, wait, do you play Warhammer 40k? I do play Warhammer 40k. This is not my art style, by the way. I teach paint nights, and so this is one of the designs that I did not design, but I got from our library. I'm teaching this one tonight, and I got to make a demo, so this is what I'm doing. But yeah, I do play Warhammer 40k. Well, I mean, I haven't played in a long time, but I used to play a lot, and I really like it. And actually, I'm trying to kind of develop like my thing, because right now I work for Paint Night, the company of Paint Night, as a contractor, and it's fine, but it's not really my vibe. So what I want to do is do kind of like sci-fi fantasy themed paint nights. Doing stuff that's, you know, I'm limited as to what I can do because I can't do like a Space Marine per se, but I can do like a Space Marine-esque thing or a Tyranid-esque thing. Or also my own ideas of whatever a cool sci-fi paint night might be. And actually, this is excellent. You should play online games they just released. Yeah, I know that Space Marine came out. I enjoy the online games. I just don't have anything to play Space Marine on, I think. But yeah, Games Workshop also sent me some free shit. So they sent me this guy and then a couple other things. Because I inquired about doing a paint night with them and they were like, well, have you ever considered selling our garbage? And I was like, maybe. But yeah, then they sent me like $200 worth of free stuff, so that was really nice. I have yet to open them or play with them though, because I've been really busy recently. I've been doing a business course, so I've just been like really, really, I don't know, I don't want to say it, but balls to the wall busy. Not had much time for anything that's not art or learning. All right, it's coming together. I think we can do a better job of this tree for sure if we just add a little bit of character to it. So let's make it just a touch taller. And then let's give it some little guys just with the corner of the brush here. Just like that. And we can come out and thicken out some of these sections. You want a good mix of thick and thin sections. They're very fun. Yeah, they did give me free stuff. It was wild because they're notorious for being cheap bastards, but they did give me free stuff. Their intention for giving me free stuff was to get me to sell it for them. And I was like, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how things go. When I do finish my business planning and stuff like that and start offering more specific sci-fi and fantasy themed paint nights, I was thinking actually of using them as kind of door prizes almost, like sign up for a paint night and you get a chance to win one of the things. I think that'd be fun. Whoa, that one was too far. I'm not doing an excellent job of these trees today, although I will say if I focus on one side first, it usually comes out a little bit better. So, going. Let's mix up the sizes there. There we go. This is looking a little bit more tree-like, I think, more so than what the other one did. It's a little bit too uniform right now, but we can always come back and add in some funky branches to mix up that sort of look to it. There's also a weird curve in my brush right now that I'm not quite sure how that came in, but it did choose to come in. Lots of people think too with trees they've got to be perfect as far as like their shape goes. It's very much not true. In fact, they look a little bit weird if they're always very triangular. So it helps to add in some like longer branches that don't quite fit with the pattern. Makes it more interesting to look at. And then when you get down to the bottom, you can thicken them out a little bit. And also make them a little bit more opaque towards the center. That oftentimes helps make trees look like trees. So if I come back over here and I just add in a little bit more pokage right in the center here, all of a sudden it looks a lot more like a proper tree. And then yeah, we come right down to the bottom like this. This maybe comes in a little bit too thick. All right. Oops. Give this a smackins. Wow. Let's keep going with our trees. I think we'll do half the trees, then we're gonna go ahead back and do the moon, and then we'll do the other trees. make this a little bit taller. Beauty. Always good to get the branches in, and then you can come back over it and thicken up the middle if you'd like. Alrighty, and then we come down to the bottom here, and then that starts to come together. I think right around the bottom we want it to be pretty dark, so I'm just going to make this whole bottom, wherever the trees are, just come in and become basically opaque. Come back over the center a little bit, thicken up the middle of the tree. Again, that'll help it look a lot more like a proper tree. Throw in some weird branches here and there, makes it look more natural. Because IRL, trees have weird branches. That is just the way it works. Okay, one more tree, then we're gonna go back to the moon, fix up the moon a little bit, get some more light area around the outside, which is really gonna help our moon come together as a moon. And just add in, whoa, some funky tree branches over here. And this one got a little bit long towards the bottom, but that's all right. You can always have one that's a little bit off. Again, trees generally look a little bit more tree-like if they're just a little bit messed up looking or a little bit random looking. This guy is gonna have a little bit more come over here. Beauty. Okay, nice. Okay, so we've taken our trees down here. If I come back up here, I'm looking at this. My tree or my moon is mostly going to be dry by now, so now I can go back to it and do a little bit of fixing up. Whoa. Wash my brush first, get that nice and clean, and now we can come around the edges of the moon. We can mix a little bit more of this white into some yellow. So I'm just gonna take a good little chunk of white here, put it onto the side. A little bit of blue got in here, but that's okay. That's not gonna change things too much. And then just a little bit of yellow. Give it a little bit of that characteristic glow from the moon. Okay. And then we're gonna come around the edges here and reinforce this nice edge. There we go. And I'm just smacking at the side here to get kind of a smooth transition. You can also use fingers on some areas here just to smooth it out. And then we're gonna go in with just some white, I think. Gonna need more white though. Whoa. All right. Grab some white, just mix it into the color that I've already got. And then right around the edge here, we're gonna wanna make this as smooth as we possibly can and pretty white. Then we'll go down to the bottom with a little bit more white on my brush. And again, gonna try and just apply some smooth white paint there. That looks pretty good. Let's bring it in. Get a little bit more of that white down into here-ish. And
so you think you know crazy?
Right around the edge here.
Think again, my friend. Not only does it have the latest blockbusters everyone's talking about,
Our moon's really coming together. It's starting to get a lot more luminous. And get that on here. We want to leave a couple of these dark blue spaces.
So yeah, Crave is out of this world.
Thanks so much, YouTube.
Literally, Crave.
How else would I know? Crave is endlessly entertaining. Okay, and once we get a good amount of paint on here, I think what we can do is go back in. Well, just like that. And let's smack it a little bit with a wet brush too. It's getting to be a bit dry, so the paper towel thing is not working as well as I'd hoped it to, but usually smacking it with a wet brush will kind of soften out some of these edges. And yeah, just come into the sky, real gentle like. Want to preserve those dark areas. And maybe use my finger to blend just a little bit. Keep some of these really harsh areas from getting too harsh. And a nice gentle blend out into the sky. Nice. Okay, I think I'm pretty happy with that. Although my computer is not. Whoa. All right. So this looks pretty good. Let's move on to continue on with our trees. So we need to lay in a couple more trees of this kind. Then we got the deciduous trees and then owls, and that's kind of it. So let's go ahead and take a little bit of water. Get some more of this dark paint mixed up. A bit more black. So that's red, yellow, or sorry, red, blue, and black mixed together to make our tree silhouette shade. Okay, we come down to this one. This one's about in the middle. Then we got the shortest one right a little bit further this way, but just right down here. And a bit over here. And then a slightly taller one. It should come up into the moon, but my moon's not quite in the right spot. So I'm just going to put it right around here. And if it wants to grow into the moon later on, it always can. Get some water on my brush, tap on the paint, and then we're going to just continue on with this tree technique of just get some water on my brush, tap on the paint, and then we're going to just continue on with this tree technique of just on it always can. Get some water on my brush, tap on the paint, and then we're going to just continue on with this tree technique of just putting a little press onto it. It's gonna grow a little bit as it comes out. On that side, the same thing over here. And you can throw in a lot of these really orderly looking branches, and then when you get towards the bottom, they can get a lot thicker. And then you just go around the inside of it, add a bit of these funky branches wherever you feel like it's needed. I'm gonna need quite a few more on this guy, especially right around here. Right there. And then as we get to the bottom, this should just kind of turn into some blackness like that. Next tree, same thing. Just give it a little dot at the top and then start putting in some little branches. They should grow in a triangular shape, more or less, but the branches don't have to be perfect. Some can go in, some can go out. Whoa. If the tree needs to grow a little bit in order to accommodate the way you've done the branches, that's okay. It was always meant to be that tall. It's just the way it is. And just back and forth like this until we fill it in more or less. You can have areas where it's not quite as wide, areas where it gets to be a bit wider. And when you start losing too much paint off the brush and you have to push real hard in order to get the paint on there, that's when you need a little bit more paint. Because we want to keep these taps relatively light. If you push too hard, it's going to fan out a lot depending on what brush you're using. And there we go. A little bit of darkness towards the bottom there. Get a bit more water on my brush. Paint it. And then again, just start doing some of these little taps. Like that. Alrighty, and these trees can come together. Trees do naturally overlap. There's nothing weird about that. And it makes it real easy to fill in the bottom of these trees. You almost don't have to look. As long as you see the suggestion of some branches, that's really all you need. I'm gonna come back in on these guys and thicken up the middle just a little bit on some of these. Just so that we don't get that really weird dark line through the middle of it. This guy could go up. It's gonna go over and pick up some of this white paint, which is what I was afraid of. You just pick some really dark paint up and just poke it straight into the moon there. Just a little bit. And we can always come back and touch that up later with a detail brush if we need, but that's just poking straight into the moon, so very nice. Okay. Matchstick's next. So we got our things in there. We could again still fuck with the moon some more, but I think I'm gonna leave it for now. We're just gonna throw some stuff in front of it and we'll be good. The next thing we gotta concern ourselves with though is these sort of spindly trees. These ones are interesting. I don't quite know what brush. I mean, my brushes are pretty limited as far as what I get to play with for these. So, I mean, a detail brush seems like it might be the nicest choice because it's going to carry enough paint. But I'd like to not have to do that if I could. For the tree branch color, I mean, I don't know exactly what it should be, but I'm feeling like it looks to me, it's gonna be I mean, it just kind of looks like black and gray. So we can try that, see how it goes. Just keep on going with this color that we're already using. I think we're just gonna use pure black though, instead of using our dark color, because this needs to stick out, and one way to do that is to use really dark color like pure black. Okay, so using my little detail brush. Where do I want to put these trees? I think I'm going to put these guys up here. Let's do some of these little branches, just see how they look. These ones are pretty wild and free as far as their thicknesses go. Normally I tell people, look, you want your branches to be much thinner towards the tips than you do at the base, and they'll look more branchy, but these ones are kind of funny ones. They're just kind of all over the place. So let's go ahead and bring one in over here. It's going to be really thin towards the center of the moon. And we just want like a really crooked sort of looking thing. So we want a really jerky looking branch like this. I'm starting to run out of paint, so that's not ideal, but we can go ahead and grab a little bit more. Grab a bit more water as well. Whenever you're working with acrylics, water is always nice. And just go in and put the branches wherever they feel right to you. With stuff like this, it's always better just to put it where it feels right versus where your brain thinks it should be. Don't try to apply too much logic to it, because then you're just going to get caught up in what things should be instead of what they are. And then we're going to come all the way down here, run out of paint. And yeah, right around down here, we're going to run out. Wow. I think for this, I might come to my bigger brush because it should carry a lot more paint. So let's try this and see how this works. We got this one, and we'll pull it down over here, just like that. Nice. let's try again with these guys. I think I'm gonna start by putting just these big branches or trunks in. Whoa, wow, I made the decision already. And then it's gonna come down here like that. And then we're gonna do another one. It's like this. I like this strategy the best, I think, so far. Also want to keep in mind, I want to put an owl on here. I don't need to be too mindful about where it is, but I do want to make sure I leave enough space for it. So I can come down here, and again, we can just kind of put in a branch. I don't like the way it looks right there, so I'm going to thicken it out towards the bottom and just have it come down over here. And I think that those three, 1, 2, 3, we've got some branches coming up over here. The rest can be done with a detail brush. So I'm going to be bringing this detail brush back in again. And then let's add in a couple branches around here. They're going to come right up around here. And I think a jerky sort of motion with your hand versus a smooth one is going to be better for this one. So if I do another one that's maybe like, whoa, whoa. Ah, no, I flubbed this one. That's okay though. We can always throw a tree in front of that one. I hate it when my hand runs into something that's on the canvas. All right, that looks pretty good. Let's keep going with this. Get some more of these branches on. Get a couple of these guys coming in from the outside. And add a little branchiness to these. All right, got that one. So we've got a couple branches coming in. That's great. We can even add another one right up here. Nice. And then I gotta flesh out the branches on the second tree in a little bit more. So we need some going this direction. So let's throw in one coming up over here. And coming straight down like that. Let's go fill this guy in while we're thinking about it. And then a couple more branches. So I'm thinking probably need one right around up here to help balance this space. Nice. And then a couple more coming in down over here. A little bit further down the tree, like that. Let's move on to the next tree. And for this guy right down here, it does come up to just about there. We've got another branch kind of coming in on this side, and then we've got some sort of coming in over here. Just like that. And then after I put this guy down, I can kind of reinforce this with as much paint I want or don't want. Just like that. There we go. Okay, I'm starting to look pretty good. I'm looking at this. This one maybe should come out a little bit further. Yeah, I'm thinking I'm gonna make this one bigger and farther on. It should come up to like the bottom of the moon here. So let's go ahead and just add this guy in right here. Consequently, means that we're probably gonna wanna make it a little bit thicker. A little bit over right here. just a touch right over here, I think. Okay, nice. And this bottom one comes up and over to the side. So we can go ahead, maybe add in a couple more wee itty bitty branches right down here maybe. And then move on to the next one. So on this one, we want a really strong branch to come just about all the way over here. So we're gonna come all the way from over here. And it's gonna come over there. Means we're gonna have to grow our little tree here a little bit, but that's all right. We've got a branch kind of coming in right down here. And then over here, we just need to make this just a bit thicker. Like that. Looks great, yeah. It's giving wah, 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 wah. I guess so. Yeah, a little bit spooky, eh? Yeah, so far this one's coming together okay. I don't love this one. I don't think it looks that nice, but it is, I don't know, I think pretty straightforward and simple to draw. It's also the way that they've done the trees here makes it really easy for beginners to get okay looking trees because you're kind of starting from a place where they're already not maybe following lots of the rules that trees normally do, but that's okay. And you know, one of the advantages of art is you can really just design things to be however you need them to be. So for this one, since we're doing it for beginners, it's really nice because you don't need to worry about so much that the lines are going to be particularly structured or shaped in a particular way. You can kind of just do whatever you want. Okay, so we've got enough branches. I think we've got a bunch coming into the side of the moon here. This is all here going to be covered in leaves, but we'll do the owls afterwards. We do want to think about where we want our owls to be though. So one of our owls needs to be right over here. So I want to make this a bit thicker to kind of make sure that our owl has enough room to exist right around here. He's going to pop up here. And then this guy maybe will be up over here. So I'll keep those things in mind, but for now, we're just gonna keep going. A couple things left to do on this one. I think I still wanna put a little bit more effort into the moon, particularly around the edges and the sides. So I'm gonna go in with my little detail brush, just my itty bitty one. And then we're going to go ahead and we're gonna paint in just some white right around the edges. Whoa, I don't wanna make it too bumpy or anything. But I do want to get this edge nice and bright white. Oh my god. Done. Nice. Bring in a little bit more white around the moon. Really get this side of it, this edge of it, to be nice and white. Nice and opaque. Really bright and shiny. And we want it to also, I think, get a little bit more thick as we get towards the center here. So I'm just putting this on with a little detail brush because it lets me get a lot of paint on very quickly and then kind of mush it around, blend it a little bit. You can also add some really light white spots to the moon, so we can come in here with the little detail brush. I'm avoiding the really dark areas, but I am kind of trying to get just on the edges of them. And we're adding in some more bright. right now I'm just looking where my light areas already are and trying to reinforce them, basically. Then to soften out, you can use a paper towel or your finger. Just poke at the sides wherever your fresh paint is. And that'll smooth it out a bit. You can also use a brush if you'd like. But it just depends on you, your needs, your thoughts, your style. Alright. Okay. I'm pretty happy with that guy. I think he's looking pretty good. There's maybe some things we can do to make it a little bit more like the reference, like pull in some bits of white like that and that, and then just blend them on the sides. There we go. Okay. Moon's looking pretty good. Okay, next thing, second last step really, is going to be putting in this, well, it's kind of like a peachy color almost with a bit of red. I think what we'll do is we'll start with a dark red. So we're going to go in with red with just a little bit of black mixed in. So we're going to take some red here, put it onto the side, take just the tiniest amount of black, mix that in. And I think also for this, I'm going to swap my brushes out. I don't want to use this big, thick brush. I want to use something a little bit more bristly because this one has a really straight edge on it. So when I swap to something more akin to this, where it's nice and round and it's got nice bristles on it, you can take a little bit of this and then we can just poke it on in places that we need it to be. So let's go ahead and just start going for it. Best to do this when your stuff is already dry. That's ideal. But especially with the red, we can afford to pick up a little bit of dark paint. You just want to note of where that is and let it dry before you do the next step, because then it's going to pick up too much if we do too much. There's a bit too much paint on my first application there, but that's okay. We can always just take that and then push it around a little bit to help smooth things out. We can add a little bit down here. A little bit over here. I want to be careful not to get too much of this dark red close to there, because the dark red is mostly looking like it's on the darker parts of the painting, and as we get closer to the moon, it gets a bit lighter. So I just want to be careful about that. Avoid getting a bit too much on there. If you're asking, how do I know where to put all this stuff? I don't. I'm just kind of putting it on, looking at it, saying, okay, does that look good? Does that look like I might want some red there? Where else might I want red? Really don't have much of a plan when it comes to putting these guys on. We're just kind of putting them on. And then we'll layer some more color on top of them. And yeah, get a little bit up here, maybe a little bit like up here, into here. And this whole section really is going to be dominated by leaves. So I think that that's probably enough of that dark red. So what we'll do is we'll wash our brush, and then we're going to start applying this more peachy color. So for Data Peach, you need white, yellow, and red. So it's an orange with white in it, essentially. I think that I could probably use this area over here. So I'm going to start with yellow, because yellow is always the weakest pigment. It's oftentimes the hardest to mix stuff into, because you end up over mixing it a lot. So I'm just going to take a little bit of red, putting it into here, get a beautiful little orange. A little bit of the blue behind it is getting mixed in, so it's kind of going a touch brown, but that's okay. That is a very normal color for tree leaves. And add a little bit of white. I'm looking at it thinking maybe it is a little bit too yellow, so I'm just going to take a little bit more red, mix that in, looking better. let's see how this looks when we start sprinkling it on here. It's a little bit too much paint on my brush, so I'm just gonna whip that out, scrape it onto the side. Oftentimes twirling it, also very helpful. There we go. And get that on there. I'm gonna start by putting it onto anywhere where there is a dark red. I'm just gonna layer it on top. Leaving the dark red mostly untouched though. I don't want to add too much of this onto there. And we're just gonna go ahead and keep on tapping this on gently. Bring a little bit of it into the moon, especially over here. I want irregular puffs of it, so I want lots in there. I should have maybe started with the pink, and I think I'm going to go back in and probably go over some of this with the pink, because I think the pink is probably going to be a better option to start with than this orange or the peachy color. And I probably could have added a little bit more red in here too, but that's alright. Let's just get this on, and we'll go back over it with a little bit of this pink, and it'll be just fine. Okay. Okay, so we got a bit of that orange in there. Now we're gonna go with the pink. For pink, it's pink with a little bit of yellow mixed into it, so I think I'm just gonna go with this orange color still and add a lot more red to this, probably also lots more white. But let's just see what we start out with here. So actually it looks pretty close to the color that I want already, so that's kind of nice. So let's take a little bit more red, just get a little bit more reddish, a little bit more pinky, get some of the water out of this brush. Whoa, 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 drop the brush all over the ground. And then let's go ahead and get this pink on there. So that, yeah, it looks a lot more like what I was hoping for, or what the color I guess I was originally shooting for. So let's get a lot of that over there. Get a bit of this over here. Just want to leave a little bit of that orange touching through. As we go through this, this orange is still a little bit wet, so what's probably going to happen is we're going to end up picking up a little bit orange off of our brush. So we want to make sure we add on some more other colors. So a little bit more down here. And let's just try to get some good tree-like shapes going on. Sandwiching it kind of in between the orange and the red we put down. I think if I was going to go back and do this again, I would start with the pink and then I'd do dabs of orange on top of it. Or peach, I should say, because it's more of a peach color. Get it kind of coming up off of over here. You want some really faint areas coming through. I'm starting to run out of paint, so that's less ideal, but it's all good. And then just get a little bit of this pink going on in the in-between areas. You want a little bit of it, you don't want huge gobs, just kind of like a ghost of pink, essence of pink. You might think about it that way. You're gonna need more of this color. Surprisingly using up a lot of it. So let's get a lot more red, and then a little bit of yellow, and then a lot more white. It's a little bit too pink. So we need more yellow. And there we go. Whoa! I lost a bunch of it. I just flung it off my plate, but that's alright. Need a little bit more yellow still. yellow, yellow, yellow. Just to bring it a little bit more in that orange direction. Get all the paint off of my brush. Well, not all of it, but like scrape as much of it as I reasonably can off on my plate. Poke at my plate a little bit. And bring a little bit of this back in here with a bristly brush. Reinforcing some of these areas. And then I'll probably also come in with some darker reds and over top here. And for this, I'm just going to go through and not really pay attention too much to where things are going. Just trying to get a nice amount of this pink all over the place. Beautiful little tuft at the end here. Okay, starting to look good. Wow, that was a bit too much up for that area. As we layer more of this on, you're gonna find probably you get a little bit more confident with it. There's some lighter pinks mixed in here as well, so I think after this I'm probably gonna go in with some darker reds on some choice areas, and then maybe some lighter pinks, and then back in with the orange. Okay, so I think there's plenty of pink on there. Looking at any areas I might have missed, there's maybe just like some areas right down here where we can start adding a little bit of this. But we don't want it to show up too strongly, particularly because it's on such a dark background. We just want the suggestion to be there. And you know, looking at this now, actually that lighter pink might have just been the same color, but just spread a little bit thinner. Okay, let's go in with a little bit more of the dark red. So that's going to be red mixed with a little bit of black. Need more red than that. And then once you get your red mixed in with a little bit of black, you got a nice dark red. We have some areas here we can get a little bit darker colors going. It can sort of mix and mingle a little bit with the pink that's over there too. So I think next time I do this, I'm going to start with the pink and then come in, do some darker areas in the reds. And we can always do a little bit more if we need to. Just gently doing the dark areas. I don't want to add too much onto it. I also want it to be nice and like kind of mixed. I don't want it to stand out too much. There's some areas down here we're going to want to add it. Areas down here for sure where we're going to want to add it. Again, just kind of looking towards wherever I feel like it makes a little bit of sense to give it a little bit more darkness. I think a little bit more on the right side. Okay, looking pretty good so far. Now I think I'm going to go back in with a little bit of that orange color. So I'm going to need to remix that. I'm going to take some yellow on the side to get that color, and then just take some of this pink that I was already using. Mix these guys together. And it's a nice dark orange, but I want something a little bit more pale, so let's get some white in there. And something, and you're going to need a little bit more of this pink still, I think. To get a nice orangey, pinky sort of color. And then, oops, I got too much red into it though. That's really not ideal. I gotta add yellow back in, which means I'm gonna have to add more white back in. Life do be hard sometimes, but you know, that is life. Okay. Let's go ahead, add a little bit more of this. Okay, and I'm almost at my peach color. Looks pretty good. Just going to be adding this gently over some areas. Maybe like around here, we can just really gently tap it on. Get a little bit of it up in the moon, a little bit of it up in this pinky area, some more there. Some nice stuff right down there. And just get some highlights in with this orange. Wherever we think we need it. That's looking pretty good so far. I think I am going to go back in with just a wet brush and smooth out some of these things. So I've got a brush with, should have no paint on it. No paint, just a little bit of water. And go into some of these areas where there's a lot of this orange and just smooth it out. Have it blend a little bit more gently into the area that's around it. Mix in some of that color that's just in the paint water to help tone it down. As I do this, my brush is going to be picking up a little bit of paint from some choice areas wherever I put it pretty much, and that's okay. I like that effect actually because it helps kind of bring together things a little bit more harmoniously. And we can soften any of these things that we think might need it a little bit. Go back into my pink. This is the primary color that my leaves are, and I'm just going to go prick on a little bit more of this in some areas I think it might be needed. And then I think that that should probably be pretty good. At this point, I think that the leaves are all right. I don't love these ones. The general style is a little bit more messy than what I would like, but it's okay. I don't have to like everything that I paint. And it's always nice to learn something new. Okay, so I think that's probably pretty good for the leaves. We're gonna go ahead and we're going to be putting in the final little detail here, which is these owls. So I'm gonna be using a much smaller brush, I think, than I likely will be for most of my things. Oh, there's a couple things we could do here. I kind of forgot about it, but we could have given the trees a little bit of depth by making them a bit gray. So maybe we'll go back and do that, but I think I'm gonna focus on the owls first. I think that these things are pretty well dry enough that we can put the owls in. Now I just need to think about the best way to teach people how to draw owls. So owls looking like, you basically want to locate yourself a spot on a branch and elect that your owl spot. So for me, I'm going to elect my owl spot to be, yeah, probably like right around here. So I'll get that a little bit black. And then from here, what we're gonna do, starting at the branch, I think what we'll do is we'll start with the body. So I'm going to draw an oval that slightly overlaps this branch. So if I wanted to start it, I would start it a little bit lower than the branch and then draw a nice big oval. Need a bit more water on my brush. Hey, Lori, how are you? So we've got the beginnings of an oval over here. I would like more water in my paint. It's not coming off quite as nicely as I would like it to for this sort of thing. And then once we finish with this, we're gonna bring this guy back down. All right. So we've got this. This thing not being cinched down is really pissing me off. Come on. Alrighty. So now we're gonna go and expand our little oval a little bit. The body, I think, is gonna be our reference point, so it's gonna tell us how big the rest of our owl should be. So I'm just gonna go ahead, fill him in with some black and make him a nice shape. Alrighty. So once I've got my oval down there, it'll grow a little bit because I'm going to give him some spiky details on the outside. I guess this is an owl, one could say. Okay, coming down here, we're gonna give him a little bit of a tail. So we're just going to use really little strokes out and we pull the brush away from the canvas as we do. Or you can start at the end too, but it really depends on you. Give him a little tail. And then we're going to give him some little details around the side. So I'm gonna take some of this black paint, gonna mix a lot of water into it. Thanks so much for the likes, guys. And then that'll hopefully allow us to get that nice detail on the outside. So right around where his head is, I'm going to do a little circle that's overlapping the oval. I always start a little bit smaller than you actually want it to be. But owls' heads are pretty good, or pretty big relative to their body, plus this guy is, again, gonna grow quite a lot. So let's go ahead and get that in there. Nice. And now he's got a nice little head, a nice little neck. He's gonna be a bit chubbier, but that's all right. We're gonna make him a bit chubbier. So we're gonna come down like this. And we're gonna give him some detail on the outside. All right, so give him a little tail. Come around the other side. Again, give him some cute little ruffles or feathers, the impression of feathers. Nice. Okay, he's coming around. And we'll give him some little hat. So he needs little ears. Gonna come up on this side. Give him that. Come up on the other side. And then just make him match a little bit. And give him some fluff on his head as well. And on the other side. Okay. Got a cute little alley boy up front. Then we gotta do another littler guy close to the back. I probably should have started with the little guy because he's kind of like right where my hand should be. But we are where we're at right now. So I'm gonna do maybe a little owl perch right here. And then we're just gonna do the same sort of thing. This guy we don't need to put as much detail on, so we're gonna start with his body coming off on the side here. Another little bump out over here. Fill that guy in. Looking at him, he's maybe a little bit too not tall enough, but that's all right. We're going to make him look taller by pulling this right down through here. Give him a little tail. Just like that. And he just needs to be a little bit taller and a little bit chubbier. And then we can give him a head. Alrighty. And then little owly feathery horns coming up over here. Just like that. So we got our 2 owls. There's a couple little details on it, but that's really it. For the details, you gotta let these guys dry and add in a little bit of gray. So I think what I'll do is I will take one of my bigger brushes, smooth these guys out just a little. I don't want to take too much paint off. I just want to smooth it out a bit so that it's a bit faster to dry. There we go. And we'll go on and add those final actual details. So these ones, we've got some black, some white. We'll mix these guys together. That's a nice gray. With the gray, we can add a little bit of depth to our trees here. So we can just come along here on the side, put a little bit of this on. Might be a bit bright, but that's okay. We can come back over with a clean brush, and then we can just work this in a little bit. You can even use a little bit more dark paint. Nice. Get a little bit more gray onto it. Come back, do one of these other trees. And then get on, wash that, a little bit of water, just to help smooth this in. And lastly, a little bit of black paint. Coming up over the sides. Beauty. All right, one more, then we can put the details on the owls and we're done. That one got a little bit too small, I think, as we were getting towards the bottom. So I'm gonna grab a little bit of black paint. And widen ourselves out a little bit. Alrighty. A little bit of depth there. Last things last, we need to put on a couple little details on these owls. So we're just gonna use gray paint. And we're just gonna add in some little highlights. Like that, there. And then a couple, just following the lines of the, well, put my hand in it, then I'm gonna follow the lines of these feathers. Just like that. And some just in the tail. And once we get those guys in, smooth them out. And then that's all you gotta do. You don't gotta do the highlights on the one in the back. It's too far away, not detailed enough. Just soften these guys out with the brush a little bit. So they're just a touch more subtle. Adds a nice interesting texture to our owl. And then get a little bit more black in just to clean this up.
Starting with a blank page can be overwhelming.
Nice. Okay. I think I'm going to call that one done for now. So thank you so much for watching. And I'm feeling pretty prepared to teach the one tonight. If you like what you saw here, you can just come back every Sunday from around 10 till 12. I'll be doing this. And I see you guys. Thanks for watching.